Is wholesaling truly a strategy for beginners in real estate? Let's explore this idea. I heard this phrase arguing recently that it is not from a colleague of mine, and I was like, you know what, that sounds like a great video. Let's talk about this because I've thought the same thing. If you went to somebody today, a total stranger, and said, Mr. and Mrs. Stranger, let's have a conversation, even though you have no idea who I am, and let's talk about how I can buy the most expensive thing you've likely ever owned at a discount. That should be easy. What would you say? If you knew nothing about the word wholesaling and somebody asked you that question, would you think it was easy? Now, I don't know what you would say, but I know what I would say. In what world do we think that getting anyone to sell the most expensive thing they'll likely ever own would be easy to a stranger they don't even know at a discount? Like, it just fundamentally and logically doesn't even make sense, right? Now, here's the deal. The idea of wholesaling is easy. You can teach someone what wholesaling is in what, 5, 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes if they take a little more time. Conceptually, it's easy, but executing it and being successful at it, I'm going to argue why it's not easy, why it's not a great strategy for beginners. Okay. And I'm going to make this as fundamental as possible. And there's two reasons why. When you think about wholesaling, and I remember I would get mad when somebody would tell me this years back, they're like, wholesaling is not real estate investing. And when I first heard that, I'm like, come on, not really. That. Fast forward a few years, a few gray hairs, a little expertise behind us, and we realized, yeah, that's actually kind of true. Okay, wholesaling is really not real estate investing. Okay, it's taxed as ordinary income effectively, and you don't get a lot of the benefits you do when you hold property for 12 months or more. But besides all of that, to be good at wholesaling, you got to be good at sales and you got to be good at marketing. If you're not good at one of those things, you're going to struggle at wholesaling. Well, let's think about this for a second. Why is wholesaling not a good beginner strategy? Simple. How many people you know are dedicated salespeople? You probably know a few. Matter of fact, if you go on a website like Indeed.com, you're going to see all kinds of sales jobs. And what do? They sell stuff full time. They get paid full time to sell stuff, or maybe they're commission only. And if they're commission only in sales, they're probably really good. Okay, and that's, by the way, that's usually where the best salespeople are. Okay, they basically can write their own paycheck because they're really good at it. But this is a craft. Like, there's books, there's there's courses, there's all kinds of stuff on just the world of sales. You can make an entire livelihood doing that. I remember when I used to be an IT professional, we would sometimes joke as the salespeople would come in and some would be better than others, but that's all they did. They went from corporation to corporation, maybe it was large, mid-sized, small business, whatever, just selling. This is a full-time gig, and if you're really good at it, they didn't just do it full-time, but they excelled at it and they did really well. It was a full-time profession. Now, let's shift gears. Marketing. That same company that sales guy might have been selling to, or maybe they worked for the company, had what was called a marketing department. And that marketing department, anything above small business, typically did it full time. In fact, today we have different segments of marketing that get hyper specific. A very common one, social media marketing. There's people that study social media marketing full time. There's people that could literally study just YouTube full time, right? Like, it's gotten so specific, right? And you have these marketing departments and then specialists at different areas in marketing as companies get bigger. These are people that are, again, dedicated to their craft. Think about magazines you read in particular, if you looked at some of the more higher end magazines, say like a DuPont registry for like high end cars, I like cars, cool magazine to check out. Or you might see a magazine about high end boating or high end homes or whatever you want to look at. The point is, you'll see these ads and they are well crafted ads, beautiful graphics, well thought out messages, lighting, displays, different things, whatever it is. These people do this full time all day, every day, and they spend bukus amounts of money, right? It's a full time craft. Now, what did I say a little while ago? Wholesaling is sales and marketing. That is wholesale in a nutshell. You got to be good at sales, you got to be good at marketing. You market for leads, and then you sell people on the idea that giving you their property at a discount is a good idea, and then you turn around and you sell it to another investor for a little bit more money and you get paid. We just described a profession that's really a combination of two full-time jobs. Think about people that are in sales, it's a full-time craft. People in marketing, it's a full-time craft. These are full-time careers that thousands of people, get paid in every day full-time. And we're coming along as the real estate community and saying, oh yeah, wholesale is a beginner strategy. It's easy. It doesn't make sense. Okay. Because you're asking someone to be good not just at one, but two different career paths at the same time, brand new to this thing called real estate. But Frank, I saw this other person be successful and they did it. Here's what I've learned about people that have early success and can sustain it. Almost always they have a background in one of those two professions already. And more often than not, it's sales. Okay. People with good sales experience, they can become good wholesalers much more quickly. Why? Because they already have experience with the hardest part, how to sell. And for most people, that's the hardest part because they already know how to deal with fear of rejection, how to handle, objections that come up, how to be persuasive, and all these different things. They already understand those things. Okay. Now, if they have a marketing background, they know how to get their message out and they just have to learn to sell. But the point is, if you're already well versed in one of those two areas, you have an advantage, and wholesaling will probably be easier for you. But for most people that hear the pitch, oh, wholesaling's easy, it's for beginners, they don't have background in either of those, and then they struggle. Years ago, I ran a wholesale group here in Atlanta. We did it for 7 years. And we were doing good, and then COVID came along, and we all saw what happened with that. So, kind of threw a wrench in things. But what I saw over the course of 7 years, and we started tracking it a few years in, roughly 90% of people that started with wholesaling were gone within 6 to 12 months. Of the remaining 10%, a few more would be gone within 2 years. Reality is, after a couple years, there weren't many left. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Okay. And it never changed. And I bet if we started tracking data today, it still probably hasn't changed. Why? Because you can go in any Facebook group, and there is nothing wrong with Facebook groups for wholesaling. Nothing wrong with them, except too many people pitch it as easy. These groups have really large memberships in some cases. Again, nothing wrong with it. But if you got a group of 150,000 people, what are the odds that 150,000 of them are millionaires and successful? Almost zero. Okay. Very few of these people succeed. I've talked to many people in these groups. Some of them, they're trying to do it for free. Think about it. You're trying to learn two different career paths at the same time for free. Okay. That's hard. That is hard. 10 days out of 10, 100 out of 100. Okay. And if you think about it, some people will then say, well, I'm going to go pay a mentor. And they'll pay maybe 2,000, 3,000, 10,000. I've met people who spent 30, 40,000. It doesn't really matter what the number is. It's still hard, right? Because we have this mentality of, oh, we're just teaching this simple thing and you do these few things and it works. you got to understand sales is people. And by the way, to market effectively, you have to understand people. When in reality, the common thread between sales and marketing is understanding people and how to communicate with them. Sales, how to persuade people and convince them that what we're talking about is a good idea. Marketing, how to attract people so that they actually listen to you in the first place, or you have the opportunity to grab their ear for a second and then them listen to you. Okay. Wholesaling is just such a tiny piece, right? Buy a property, sell it to the next person for a little bit more money, get paid. That's the easy part. Sales and marketing, that's not easy for most people. This is why I would argue wholesaling is not a good strategy for beginners. It's easy in the sense that you can understand it, but it's not easy in the sense you're learning two full-time career paths at the same time with a widget. We're calling the house a widget that most people simply don't have deep experience with outside of the one they live in. So if you've been wholesaling and it's been a struggle, pat yourself on the back for sticking with it. You're not alone. Reality is most people struggle with it. Most people don't succeed at it. And now you know why. So if you would like help, feel free to reach out or look at the various resources online. But my encouragement to you is very simple: learn sales, learn marketing, focus on one first, get good at it, then the other. You're going to have a much higher chance of success. And you'll appreciate the craft a lot more. And when the next time you hear somebody say wholesaling is easy, you can smile and go, they don't know the full story. So, hope you enjoyed this. Feel free to connect, like, share, subscribe, comment. I will see you around. See ya.